Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. And this time we have that fun bunch to talk about again, known as the Parent Music Resource Center, the PMRC, the Pied Pipers and vanguard of censorship from around the mid-80s up to the mid-90s when they kind of fizzled out. But in 1992, they still had a bit of bite behind their bark, and they inspired other people to gang up on Ice-T to demand the censorship of his song Cop Killer, which was the final track on the initial pressings of the first Body Count album. Now, Body Count itself was quite a revolutionary idea from Ice-T. Ice-T was already a musical pioneer. He was the first major superstar of West Coast hip hop and the first major superstar in all of hip hop to do what at the time was called reality rap, but what later on became known because of industry pressure as gangster rap. These were hyper realistic stories about the life in South Central LA and other areas and the kinds of things that Ice-T had really seen. And unlike some who were prone to exaggeration, Ice-T was a great storyteller. He wasn't just naming events, he was weaving stories. And all of his stories had morals. And the morals of these stories were all about staying out of trouble and keeping smart. And I think that's an important message no matter what background you come from. Now, by the early 90s, Ice-T had the idea to create a heavy metal group that he could rap over, and his explanation for it was very interesting. Most of the music in hip hop, certainly up to that time, was music derived from the funk and soul worlds of music. And a lot of this music it's very cool, it's very funky, some of it's laid back, most of it's very danceable, very little of it is aggressive. And yet these hyper realistic gangster lyrics were very in your face, very hardcore. And Ice-T had the idea, what if I were to combine the aggression and power of heavy metal, which he had been listening to in his youth along with other music? He was a fan of Zeppelin, he was a fan of Black Sabbath. What if I were to take that hard edge and rap over it? And with that in mind, he formed a heavy metal rap hybrid group called Body Count. And their first album, which was released in 1992, was absolutely revolutionary. Now, as I said, the final track on the album, there were plenty of tracks for people to get, angry about. But the final track was Cop Killer, which a lot of people said, oh, you're threatening the lives of police officers. Ice-T explained it very eloquently. It's a story song, just like all of his others. And this is about a fictional story, but based on the real relationships between urban black men and the police at that time. And he wove a tale about it in the same way that Spike Lee wrote fictional films about it, or in the way that plenty of police officers get shot in movies that were made for more white suburban audiences, Terminator types of movies and other Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, RoboCop types of movies. And that should have been the end of it. It was an artistic statement dealing with a hardcore subject, protected by the First Amendment. But the PMRC did not like it, and then Charlton Heston stepped into things. Now, Charlton Heston's one of my favorite actors, and I also love Ice-T. I love his acting and his music. And so two people from very different generations and very different backgrounds were pitted against each other. Now, Charlton Heston was always very political. In the early 60s, he put his career on the line along with others, people like Harry Belafonte and Marlon Brando and Sammy Davis Jr., to fight for civil rights and integration. He was, for instance, on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous March on DC and appeared on television alongside Marlon Brando and others defending his position here. Now, he was just as political in the 1990s. He was a strong advocate for the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, the right to defend yourself. And at that point, or around that point, he became the president of the National Rifle Association, the NRA. So always very much active in the political world at various, throughout his grown life, really from the 60s onwards. Now, Heston hated this song. He took the view that it promotes violence against the police, and he did something a bit different than the PMRC. Rather than just say that this should be censored by the government or other people, he went to a Warner Brothers shareholder meeting and basically threatened to have shareholders withdraw their money from the company, divest from the company if they didn't go after Ice-T. Now, the scandal ended when Ice-T voluntarily said, "Look, I'll take the song off the album and we'll do new pressings of the album without the song." And to this day, the version of the original Body Count album that's available to you and me on streaming is the one with this track removed, although the song is ubiquitous on YouTube and elsewhere. Frank Zappa commented on this, saying that Ice-T was wrong to remove the album instead of fighting two people that Frank Zappa had already fought: Warner Brothers Records, who Frank Zappa sued in the late 70s, and the PMRC, that Frank Zappa was debating, including in a Senate committee hearing for many years up to that point. But that's more or less how the scandal ended. Now, because Ice-T didn't directly fight for his rights, we don't know what would have happened. But what we do know is that censorship is always something that tends to cloak itself in low IQ arguments that are all about the welfare of certain groups for whom most people would want to see the welfare protected. It's a very sneaky and disingenuous argument. When the PMRC tried to destroy the First Amendment, they said, "We're doing it for the children." Negating the concept that if a parent really does have the view, an irrational view in my point of view, but one that you're allowed to have, if you have the irrational view that lyrics on a record somehow alter your mind and make you do bad things, that is a job for the parents, not for the government, and not for people putting out product, whether it's the artist or the record company. And so the argument that surrounded this track was that, oh, it will lead to violence against police. When again, did RoboCop? It's a very fatuous argument. They always attack the music industry first because it's never been as powerful an industry as film and television. Don't get me wrong, the censors attack them too. But because the people involved in those industries tend to be that much closer to the people in government than the people making music, they always tend to use music makers as the sacrificial lambs in their censorship battles. Now, I find it a shame that the song is not even to this day available on streaming. It should be. It's free speech. Speech doesn't cause people to do violent things. Actions and reactions to those actions, and things like mental illness and the things that cause mental illness, like the overprescription of SSRIs, those things cause people to do violence, not listening to a song. And so the battle for censorship continues, and it always takes a different shape and a different form. But back in 1992, it was all about Ice-T, who maybe had the last laugh because for the last 25 years or so, he's played a police officer on Law and Order. So there you go. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.